So the infinite game is not the absence of finite games. You can absolutely have arbitrary goals. And remember, most of the financial goals we set, a few people sat in a room and said, what do we want our annual goal to be? And somebody says, let's make it this number. And somebody goes, no, let's make it this number. And that becomes the number, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. In fact, it's necessary. Human beings are very tangibly driven animals. We like counting things. It's actually important. Can you imagine running a marathon without mile markers? It would actually be unnerving. So metrics help us measure speed and distance, which is very, very important. But we have to remember that when we hit a metric or don't hit a metric, the game has not been won or lost. They're markers, right? And that's the important part. So we have to stop thinking about business like a race or a game and start thinking of it like a lifestyle. It's not about abandoning goals, it's contextualizing the goals. And what most businesses lack is context for the goals. So we use all the wrong analogies in business. We use war analogies, it's a launch, it's a campaign, you know. We use sports analogies, you know, it's fourth and goal, and like we gotta, you know, and they're all finite constructions. We need to start thinking of business like a lifestyle, right? Think of it more like health. Like, I want to be healthy. What does it take to be healthy? Well, you have to exercise, you have to eat right, you have to nurse your personal relationships, you have to get enough sleep. There's probably 30 other things. You can't do all of these things perfectly all the time. It's a striving. Well, what you have to do well in business. You need good product, you need good service, you need good leadership. So you can't do all those things perfectly all the time. It's a striving. And you can absolutely have arbitrary goals in that. We love a metric. Human beings love a metric. So, for example, I want to lose X amount of weight by X date. Arbitrary number, arbitrary date, which is largely how we pick financial goals. We're going to hit this goal by this date. Make it this number, you know? And it's arbitrary. And that's fine. And so you go and you stand on the scale every morning, you're doing all the right things. We love measuring, we love counting, we love feeling the progress. And then you hit your goal on the right day and the right time and you're ecstatic. But here's the thing. You have to keep exercising for the rest of your life. It doesn't end. And it's the same with business. You hit your goal, but the whole thing called business and all that striving and marketing, and it doesn't end. Like, you have to keep doing it. But I think it's more interesting when we miss the goal. Because if you're doing all this stuff and you stand on the scale on that day and you miss your goal, you know what happens?
You keep working out.
Nothing happens, right? And what's more important is the trend. Because you are more healthy now, you are healthier now than you were when you started. You just happened to pick the wrong date. Clearly, you're going to hit it in a month. And I think what we as companies need to start doing is, first of all, contextualizing the goal. The reason we need to hit this goal is because it helps us build towards that bigger vision.
Yep.
And when we hit it, we look at the context. Oh, do we have bad leadership that just, you know, at the last minute, in the last quarter, had all these promotions so they could hit their numbers, but they're a terrible leader building a terrible team, and this has been their year, but we bonus that person versus the other team that's really well led, that's doing everything right, beautiful steady growth line. They just happen to miss the number. We give them nothing, so we're accidentally incentivizing the wrong behaviors. I think we need to start looking at trend data because that's infinite mindedness. And I think we need to start contextualizing those goals. If they lack context, if it's goal for the point of goal, you're in a finite game. So for example, I want to be healthy, right? So there are many things I have to do to be healthy. I have to eat right, I have to exercise, I have to, you know, get enough sleep, I have to nurse my personal relationships. There's probably 15 or 20 other things. Can't do all of those things well all the time. It's a striving. Same in business. We have, you know, we have product, we have marketing, we have sales, we have leadership. Can't do them all right all the time. It's a striving. But we can set arbitrary goals like I want to lose X amount of weight by X date, right? And every day I'm going to stand on the scale. Some days I'll feel good and some days I'll feel bad. And when I hit my goal, I'm excited. But the problem is I have to keep exercising for the rest of my life. Like it hasn't ended simply because I hit a goal. And that's important to recognize. But what I find more interesting is what happens if you miss the goal? And the answer is nothing. Nothing happens. In fact, very often, we just miscalculated the time it'll take to achieve it. So if you're doing all the right things and you see the trend data is on path, and you just lose that weight in a month later or 2 months later, okay, you're healthier now, even missing the goal, than you were before. The bad news, where it gets dangerous is when we're so obsessed with that goal that I'll starve myself and stop drinking water to hit the goal, and I'm actually unhealthy. And companies do that. So the goals are good, and celebrating the wins are great, and there are wins. That's fantastic. But we have to remember that if we miss the goal, the question is, what's the trend data? Like, are we a healthy company? Are we taking care of each other? And I'll just go back a few years ago. Ginny Rometty, IBM missed its numbers. And Ginny Rometty made an internal video, which of course leaked, made an internal video that was sent out to the entire IBM that basically shit all over the sales team, publicly. And I remember talking to somebody at IBM, and I'm like, what's with that video? And they're like, oh, so glad I'm not in sales, right? And basically berated them for missing the numbers. This was the first time IBM had missed its numbers, the first quarter in 69 quarters. And the CEO's response was to berate a team, berate an entire division, right? After 69 quarters, they missed their first one. Guess what happened after that berating of the team and what happened to the culture, and guess how many times they missed it after that? It continued. In other words, it's fine. It's fine to miss it. It's a game. It's a long game. So I think that's where we get confused, which is we become obsessed with we missed our numbers once. Well, we're doing fantastic. You know? So I think that's where it's just about keeping things in perspective. That's where the infinite mindset helps. It's just about perspective.